Not a year has passed in the last decade without a journalist being murdered in Somalia, according to a March 2016 report released by the Committee to Protect Journalists, CPJ. Somalia is one of the most dangerous countries in the world to work in as a journalist. GBC 24's Abdul Hayi Moomen has just returned from war-torn Somalia and reports that despite the difficulties in practicing their profession, Somali journalists are still determined to get the news in the belief that journalism is a calling to serve one's country and people. We at GBC 24 tip our hats to these brave journalists who lost their lives in the line of duty.
For the first time since 2008, Iraq isn't at the top of the annual report, which details countries where journalists are killed with no resulting convictions. This year, the top spot went to Somalia. Before I stepped out to do my work as a journalist, I was cautioned about the dangers involved in reporting in Somalia.
Someone may be aware of your place and what, but this one is for you.
For me, there was no turning back. I have made a request to the security forces here in Somalia, the forces who work for the UN and the Africa mission here, to go out with them onto the field to see things for myself. I'm under no obligation to do that, but they have agreed and they have given me this protective armor, this bulletproof armor, as well as this helmet to protect me in case of any eventualities. And they've also given me this form to fill to indemnify the UN should anything happen. But God willing, I'll be back alive. In the last 24 months, at least 52 journalists have been murdered, the majority targeted by Al-Shabaab militants who for years have threatened and assaulted journalists in relation to their coverage of the group's activities. In April, unidentified armed men broke into the home of a popular journalist, Dawood Ali Omar, at night and killed him and his wife while they were sleeping. Dawood was a producer for a privately owned pro-government radio station, and local journalists and police say they suspect Al-Shabaab was responsible. A close call with death gave popular Somali radio journalist Mohammed Noor first-hand experience of the perils of exercising his profession. Noor, who goes by the studio name Sharifka, was shot 3 times in the stomach in a brutal attack in the capital city Mogadishu in June 2012. He was leaving his office premises when he was attacked by 2 pistol-wielding assailants believed to be Al-Shabaab militants. The attack left 2 bullets lodged in his stomach. After 2 months in a Nairobi hospital and another 3 convalescing at home, Noor returned to work in Mogadishu despite protests from his family. 2 months later, 2 of his journalist friends were killed in an explosion in which Noor believes was targeted at him.
If we compare 2 years before, 2013, we lost about 19 journalists. And if we go in 2012, we lost 30 journalists. 30 journalists, yes. So you can understand the difference between the situation. So we are getting better. We are coming good.
Death threats, targeted assassinations and intimidation are still daily realities for Somali journalists whose working conditions have been ranked among the most dangerous in the world. For almost 3 decades, war and terror from Al-Shabaab threatened the survival of journalism in this country, which many have described as a failed state in the past. But today, the journalists have come together to build a union that will keep them going. Mwalimu Mohammed is the president of the Somali Journalists Association. In January, he was almost killed in a suicide bomb attack while he was on assignment in Mogadishu.
You can imagine, I'm one of the people who have been there for that time, and I got injured 2 times. One of them was in the front of the UN compound. There was an explosion, a suicide attack. I was one of the people who got injured at that attack. And the suicide bomber at that time, it was in 2013, fall down on my car and the whole car smashed, but luckily I survived from that attack. And the second attack, last January 27th, I was one of the people who was attacked in Lido Beach, and you can see all the scars of on my face. That is the injuries that I have received. So that's the situation we are working, all of us.
In Mogadishu, assassinations are normally carried out by masked men who waylay journalists in alleys and at times at the gates of their residences. Most murders are never properly investigated. The threats undermine coverage of not only sensitive political stories but also important humanitarian issues. Joint offensives by Somali National Army and AMISOM has secured the capital Mogadishu and other parts of the country, which has resulted in an improvement in overall security and working conditions for the general public, including journalists. But the reality is that freedom of the press is still a wish and not a reality for many Somalis. Abdul Hayi Moomen, GBC 24, Mogadishu, Somalia.